بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I had an inspiration to make a short video speaking about the deeper spiritual meaning of fasting. We perhaps all know about the physical and mental benefits of fasting. In fact, I'm not an expert in these things, but I do understand that the fast, the idea of depriving your body for some period of time of food, is something not only beneficial, but one might argue quite necessary to preserve the functioning of the body. Moreover, the ability of the mind to, for an extended period of time, withstand deprivation, withstand some degree of discomfort, is absolutely necessary. We might use a sort of anthropological argument, considering that the advent of agriculture occurs at only the end of human history as we understand it. But for the long expanse of human history, there was no agriculture as we understand it. What that means is there was no consistent food production. But food production was intermittent. Food would come when it comes, either through hunting an animal, in which case you can feast for a few days, but that will run out unless you ration it quite carefully, or when the harvest has come and a certain plant is in its season. But food would not be procured regularly. And that is the environment in which the human body has developed, and the mind as well, because we cannot separate the mind and the body. And that really is a topic of another video. But yes, we might understand that, the human being in its ancient manifestation is designed to withstand long periods of hunger and thirst. The human body is very well equipped to forget about half a day or a full day. The human body is very well equipped to stand for days, perhaps weeks, without food. Not just groveling on the ground and complaining, but actually in a state of high physical activity and momentum. So we all have it within our DNA in a very literal sense. But then there's a question of, okay, well, what impact has it had on us, on our physical and mental constitution, to be consuming meals 3 times a day, perhaps even more if we include snacks, something which the human body was not really designed for? How is that affecting us? And how is the absence of long periods of hunger, of deprivation, of emptiness, how is that impacting us? These are questions which require more of an expert in anthropology and nutrition, physiology, all these various sciences, and from a holistic perspective at that to understand. But we can do something more here, and really all this is merely accidental in the sense of attributive. These are the attributes and properties of fasting. But I mean here to speak something of the essence of the fast. For there is a fast where we simply do not have the means to feed ourselves. And let us make this clear that we speak not only of fasting of food or water, but fasting understood as deprivation, as not having, as an emptiness. That is a deeper meaning of fasting. And the essence of this fast is not simply not having, it is the willful choice not to have. The intention is of the utmost importance. That is what makes it a fast. And as is our wont and our habits, we might strengthen the discourse using something of Arabic. The word for fasting in Arabic, which perhaps we are all familiar with, is sawm. That comes from the verb. So, sawma, yasumu, and the verbal noun, the masdar, that is sawm. And also siyam. Now, one already the deep, true meaning of sawm is sama an ash-shay. Sama an ash-shay, or an shay'in. An has a meaning of away from. So sama is to prevent oneself, withhold oneself from something, whatever it is. Sama an ta'am, to fast from eating. Or sama an sharab, to fast from drinking. So the deep meaning of fasting is withholding oneself, or rather being away from something. An is the ablative particle. It means away from. Now this leads into this deeper spiritual discourse, which I would like to somewhat embark upon. Fasting is a transcendence. There are different ways in which we can be away from a thing. We can be away from it, as I said, in the lowest, and perhaps let's make a note of this. I mean, the lowest degree of the fast is we are away from it in the sense that we do not have it. That is, I suppose, physical deprivation and lack. That is the most manifest and obvious sense in which we can fast, in a sense. We are away from it because we do not have it. However, in this case, as if we are starving, we are physically away from it. Right? We are away from it physically, the body. But if anything, the mind and the heart is closer towards it. Ilayhi, it's turning towards it. Even more than had we had it in front of us. So that's not the deepest sense of the psalm. If psalm is about being away from something, away from, distant, transcendent from it, this lack, the physical impoverishment, does not truly fulfill the meaning of fasting. Then there's intention. We have the thing, we have the capacity to fulfill this particular desire, but we choose not to. Mind over matter, as we say. The body has the ability, but the mind chooses not to. Let's call that mental intent. Mental intention not to partake. It's not necessarily a physical deprivation, though it may be. It may be the case that we are physically deprived of something, that we are impoverished, that we are oppressed, that we are actually being embargoed and sanctioned, and we do not have the ability to fulfill our basic needs. But we choose not to suffer from it. Of course, there's a degree of physical suffering which we cannot help. That's the structure of the body. But we mentally choose not to be impoverished to it. For example, we starve and someone says, I will give you food if you curse your mother, if you abandon your morals, if you kill your child. The physical deprivation is there. But This is not accompanied by a mental or emotional connection to that thing. If anything, if anything, you're starving. Someone offers you food if you kill your child. That will repulse you from that food they offered you even more. So the greater degree of fasting, the truer meaning of fasting, is to choose not to partake in that thing itself. Not only not to partake in the physical act of it, but not to partake in the idea of it. And fasting as a religious practice, as a spiritual practice, this is what it pertains to. Whether we are in that physical deprivation or not. And if we are not, we should certainly prepare, because we do not know what ways the winds of destiny shall turn our lives. We should prepare to undergo, if we need to, physical hardship. We do that by strengthening the mind, strengthening our will. And the will is only strengthened, mental intention is only strengthened if it has a goal unto which to strive. Intention cannot be developed by merely arbitrarily saying that I shall do something. Intention is a connection of the heart to intention or to vision. It is desire. The only way to overcome a lesser physical desire is to have a greater emotional desire which overwhelms it. Our emotional attachment to our child is greater, infinitely greater than our physical attachment to food. We would never accept food meant even our child being done harm to, let alone ourselves doing harm to the child. But that is still not the purpose I mean here. And Ramadan, the holy month, is around the corner, so many Muslims will be fasting, myself included, in just around a month. And perhaps many people are watching this video who fast in other capacities or do not fast, in which case this would be a good introduction to the idea of fasting. This is the last point, the true meaning of fasting, which I think is lost in all of us, perhaps more so from those who approach fasting as a formal religious practice, which in many cases can blind us to the spiritual meaning of it if we merely partake in some rites, to do away with the rite, to fulfill the letter of the law. Often, as Jesus said, the letter of the law blinds us to the spirit of the law. We want to fulfill the spirit through the letter because the spirit is the spirit of the letter. It is the spirit of the body. What is a body without spirit? And what spirit without body? But here there is a famous hadith we have, and I should perhaps write this out. I shall read it first. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke upon his tongue the word of God, and God spake through him. يقول الله, that God says, تبارك وتعالى, كل عمل ابن آدم له, كل عمل وكل عمل ابن آدم, every work of the son of Adam, of man, له, is his, إلا الصوم, except the fast, فإنه لي, for verily it is mine, وأنا أجزي به, and I shall give its reward. Let's write that down. كل عمل ابن آدم له إلا الصوم فإنه لي, وأنا أجزي به. But there's two particular things I would like to focus here. Amal, That is for now translated as work, but amal is a very deep idea. Work, do not think of work merely as the work of the hands. Thought is also an amal. It can be of the, let's say, the body or the heart. In Arabic, we say the heart is qalb, and the word for the body is qalb, qalb, qalb. The work of the body is the work of the hands, physical exertion, but there is the work of the heart. The work of the heart is the exertion of the heart. By the heart, we mean the subtle body. The subtle body, that is consciousness. The work of consciousness is thought, because even as the body is naturally in a state of work, breath is a work. The pulsating beat of the heart is a work. It is a physical, a biological, a biomechanical work which sustains the body itself. So consciousness has a work. Also consciousness, the mind has a breath and a heartbeat, and that is thought. And that is why in every moment there is a new thought. As in every moment there is a new breath and a new pulse. That is work. All our works, physical, mental, spiritual, bodily, sensory, emotional, all our works, lahu, they are ours. We speak of our breath, my hand, my tongue, my word, my action, my doing. But soul, this is it. We do not say my work, my fast. Oops, that's the wrong place. It is here, li, God's work. Fasting is the work of God, not the work of man. And here I shall tie this story together. Because if the meaning, the root meaning of fasting, soul, is to be away from something, transcendent from it, the deepest sense of soul, the deepest and therefore truest meaning, the very essence of fasting, is to transcend the thing altogether. There is a physical deprivation. There is a mental intention, but there is altogether a spiritual transcendence. That is to have no need for the thing to begin with, whether it is food or drink or sexual appetite and desire, or physical comfort, or society, whatever it is. The true meaning of the fast is not to need any of these things at all. Of course, only that which truly is transcendent of all things can truly fast in that deepest sense. And that is why a soul, the fast, the Alif Lam here is capturing the essence, the fast itself. A soul, the very essence of fasting is unto God. It is the work of God. Because the work of God is pure and utter transcendence. To be in one's august quiescence, utterly behold, involute, sublime, infinite, needing nothing whatsoever because one is utterly full of himself. What the Greeks call the divine pleroma, the idea of fullness, the idea that of being infinite, of being utterly filled with nourishment and everything one might need. That is the fast. It is God's work. It is God's fast. So really when we fast in this deeper sense, in the sense of not needing the thing at all, of yes, experiencing the pangs of the body, perhaps the pangs of the mind, but knowing that we are not the body, neither the mind, but that we are the spirit which God breathed into us. And that spirit needs nothing because it is godly. It needs only God himself, which we have. That one thing, the one and only thing which we need, the connection to the divine, that connection is our very essence, because that existentiating connection is our existence. So the deepest, truest meaning of the fast is to partake in one's godly nature, in one's divine and heavenly aspect, which is the spirit which God breathed into us, into this physical frame. That is the fast which we seek to embody and truly to realize. There's more to say here about the meanings and the secrets of the letters of the psalm. Psalm is related to As-Samad, the great name of God, the absolute, As-Samad, As-Samadiyya, the absoluteness of God, of the divine, that he is the ground of all things, the utmost foundation, the bedrock of all of reality, upon which all things rest, because it is the utmost foundation and the fathomless abyss and the abysmal darkness, which itself needs nothing other than itself because it grounds itself. But the spirit is that. The spirit is a drop of divinity. And if we breathe into the spirit, we dissolve ourselves in the ocean of divinity and therefore become utterly full, needing no thing. That is the true mystery of the fast. And perhaps to actually end here on some practical notes, how might we begin to realize this nature? It is to welcome these two. It is to welcome the first pang of hunger that we have, that physical discomfort. That is the feeling of fullness, not the feeling of emptiness. We feel, let's say, physical hunger. And the great sage Imam al-Ghazali says that if one can master the pangs of hunger, he can master all things, because the desire for food is the most basic desire. And every other desire is subsidiary to the desire for food. The proof of that is that if we are starving, we are not thinking of physical comfort or intimacy or sexual desire or what type of food we're going to have. In a state of absolute starvation, one only thinks of this utmost, most necessary need and desire, which is satiation. Satiation. So when one experiences that need for satiety, we remind ourselves with form of dhikr that we are satiated with God. And that requires us to come into our spiritual nature, which can be done through breath work, through heart work, through prayer, meditation, contemplation. And we should actually feel in that state, the spiritual fullness, literally filling our physical emptiness. That's why the great mystics praise this emptiness, the emptiness of the room, the house of God being pure, blissful serenity and silence, the emptiness of the mind being full of no thought, therefore empty unto the contemplation of the divine mysteries, the emptiness of one's heart of all desires, of all idols, to be filled with the oneness of all things, and the emptiness of the belly, to be empty of physical satiety, because that emptiness is then filled with spiritual satiety. So let me leave this here, and perhaps if I make another video, which I intend to do, God willing, before Ramadan, we can speak a bit more about this, the meaning of as-Sawm, the Sad, the Dal, the as-Samadiyya of God, and that absolutity. and perhaps some more notes about how we can begin to realize this spiritual meaning. Wassalamu alaikum.